Motorcycle dealerships across America are in a full-blown crisis right now, and honestly, they brought this on themselves. We're talking about over 400 permanent closures in 2025 alone, 92,000 unsold motorcycles rotting on dealer lots, and dealerships paying six figures annually in interest on inventory they cannot move. And the crazy part? Every single mistake that got them here was completely avoidable. I'm Jimmy, and I've been covering the motorcycle industry long enough to see this disaster coming from miles away. Today I'm exposing the three massive mistakes dealerships made that destroyed their own business, why they're now trapped in a death spiral they can't escape, and what this means for you if you're thinking about buying a motorcycle. Because here's the thing, their crisis is your opportunity, but only if you understand what's actually happening. Let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest mistake, the one that set everything else in motion. During COVID and the supply shortage that followed, motorcycle dealerships got drunk on markups. And I mean, they absolutely obliterated any sense of reasonable pricing. A Harley Sportster with an MSRP of $14,999 was selling for $19,000 out the door. A Yamaha R7 with a sticker price of $9,000 was going for $12,500 after dealer markups and fees. Indian Scouts were marked up $8,000 to $10,000 over MSRP, and dealers were laughing all the way to the bank. And here's what made it worse. They weren't just marking up the bikes. They were adding mandatory packages. You want this bike? Cool. It comes with a mandatory $3,000 accessory package. Saddlebags you don't want. A windshield that looks terrible. Heated grips on a bike. You're only riding in summer. All of it marked up to maximum retail. All of it required to buy the bike. You couldn't just buy the motorcycle. You had to buy their profit-loaded garbage along with it. And for a while it worked. Demand was insane. People were stuck at home, stimulus checks were hitting bank accounts, and everybody wanted a motorcycle. Dealers had wait lists. Customers were putting deposits down on bikes they hadn't even seen yet. Dealers were turning people away because they literally couldn't get enough inventory to satisfy demand. But here's what they forgot. Markets correct, supply chains recover, and customers remember. When you spend $19,000 on a motorcycle that should have cost $15,000, you don't forget that. When a dealer forces you to buy $3,000 worth of accessories you didn't want just to get the bike, you don't come back to that dealer for service. You don't send your friends there. You don't trade in your next bike there. You remember that they gouged you, and you hold a grudge. And now, in 2026, the market has corrected. Supply's back. In fact, there's way too much supply. And all those customers who got burned, they're not coming back. Dealerships destroyed their own customer base by being greedy during a temporary shortage, and now they're paying the price. The second massive mistake was inventory selection, and this one is almost unbelievable. Dealerships looked at the COVID boom, saw people buying motorcycles like crazy, and made a catastrophic assumption. They thought the demand would last forever, so they ordered everything. And I mean everything. Adventure bikes, cruisers, baggers, electric motorcycles, limited editions, high-end models. They filled their lots with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 motorcycles because that's where the profit margin was highest. Here's the problem. The people who bought motorcycles during COVID were not experienced riders dropping 50 grand on a fully loaded road glide. They were new riders buying entry-level bikes, Rebels, Scouts, Ninja 400s, SV650s, bikes in the $6,000 to $10,000 range. Affordable, beginner-friendly, practical motorcycles. But dealers didn't stock those. Why? Because the profit margin on a $7,000 Honda Rebel is maybe $800. The profit margin on a $40,000 Indian Challenger is $4,000 to $6,000. So dealers loaded up on expensive bikes, assuming the boom would continue and customers would keep upgrading to bigger, pricier models. Except that's not what happened. The new riders who bought entry-level bikes during COVID rode them for a year or two, decided motorcycles weren't for them, and sold them. They didn't trade up. They got out of the hobby entirely. And the experienced riders who could afford $50,000 baggers, they already owned bikes. They weren't buying new ones every year. They were keeping their 20-year-old Harleys running forever because they didn't trust dealerships after the markup insanity. So now, dealerships are sitting on lots full of $40,000 Indians, $35,000 Harleys, and $25,000 adventure bikes that nobody wants. Meanwhile, the affordable bikes that people actually want to buy sold out in a week. A dealership will have 15 unsold Road Glides sitting on the lot for 18 months, and the one Rebel 500 they get in stock sells the same day it arrives. And here's the kicker. Dealers can't just send these bikes back to the manufacturer. Once they order them, they own them. Or, more accurately, they owe the bank for them, which brings us to the death spiral they're trapped in right now. Let me explain something most people don't know about how motorcycle dealerships actually work. When you walk onto a dealer lot and see 50 bikes sitting there, the dealership doesn't own those bikes. They borrowed money to buy them. It's called floor plan financing, and it works like a credit card. Every single bike on that lot was purchased with borrowed money, and the dealership is paying interest on that loan every single day until the bike sells. Now, in a normal market, this isn't a problem. A bike arrives at the dealership, it sits on the lot for 30 to 60 days, it sells, the dealer pays off the floor plan loan, and they pocket the profit. The interest expense is minimal because the bike moves quickly. But we're not in a normal market. Bikes are sitting for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and that entire time, the dealership is paying interest. Let's do the math on a $40,000 Indian Challenger. The dealer borrowed $40,000 to buy it from Indian. Floor plan interest rates are typically 6 to 10%. Let's say 8%. That bike sits on the lot for 12 months unsold. The dealership just paid $3,200 in interest on a bike they haven't sold yet. Now multiply that across 50 bikes, 100 bikes. Dealerships are paying $60,000 to $110,000 per year in floor plan interest on inventory that isn't moving. That's pure loss. That's money going out the door every single month with nothing coming back in. And here's where it gets worse. Floor plan lenders give dealers a grace period, usually 90 to 180 days, where the interest rate is 0 or very low. After that grace period, the rate spikes. So for the first 6 months, that Indian Challenger might cost the dealer a few $100s in interest. But after 6 months, the interest rate jumps to 8 or 10%, and the costs start piling up fast. Dealers are now stuck in a brutal cycle. They can't sell the bikes at full price because customers aren't buying. They can't drop the price too much because they're already underwater on floor plan interest. They can't send the bikes back to the manufacturer, and they can't afford to keep paying interest forever. So what do? They get desperate. And this brings us to the third mistake, and in my opinion, the most disgusting one. Instead of fixing their pricing, instead of stocking bikes people actually want, instead of rebuilding customer trust, dealerships doubled down on predatory financing. Here's what I'm seeing right now. Dealerships running ads that say, trade in your bike and get cash for the holidays. Or refinance your motorcycle and get money for Christmas gifts. And when you read the fine print, here's what they're actually offering. They'll give you a terrible trade-in value on your current bike, let's say $4,000 on a bike that's worth $7,000 privately. They'll roll your negative equity into a new loan, and they'll finance you at 11 to 15% interest over 6 or 7 years. So you walk in with a bike you owe $8,000 on that's worth $7,000. You're $1,000 upside down. They offer you $4,000 in trade. Now you're $4,000 upside down. They roll that into a new $25,000 bike loan. Now you owe $29,000 on a bike that's worth $22,000, and you're paying 13% interest for 72 months. But hey, they'll cut you a check for $2,000 to buy Christmas presents. Congratulations. You just destroyed your financial future for holiday shopping money. And the worst part? Dealerships know exactly what they're doing. They're targeting people who are financially struggling, people who are desperate for cash, people who don't understand interest rates or loan terms. They're preying on financial illiteracy to move inventory and generate short-term revenue, fully knowing they're trapping customers in loans they'll default on within 2 years. I've seen people finance helmets and jackets into their motorcycle loans at 12% interest over 5 years. A $1,500 helmet ends up costing $2,000 after interest. And when they default on the loan in year 3, the bike gets repossessed, their credit is destroyed, and the dealership, they already made their money on the financing commission. This isn't just bad business, this is predatory, and it's destroying what little trust customers still had in dealerships. So now dealerships are stuck holding overpriced inventory they can't sell, paying massive interest on floor plan loans, and burning customer trust with predatory financing. And just when you think it can't get worse, the wholesale market collapses. Here's how this works. When a dealer has a bike, they can't sell retail. They can take it to auction and sell it wholesale to another dealer or a used bike buyer. Normally, a dealer can recoup 70 to 80% of what they paid at auction. A bike they have $30,000 into might bring $24,000 at auction. That's a $6,000 loss, but at least they stop the bleeding on floor plan interest. Except, wholesale prices are falling off a cliff right now. Auctions are flooded with inventory because every dealer in the country is trying to dump their slow-moving bikes at the same time. And when supply floods the market, prices collapse. A Harley Road Glide that a dealer has $35,000 into, it's bringing $19,000 at auction. That's a $16,000 loss. An Indian Scout the dealer paid $15,000 for, $8,000 at auction. Dealers are looking at these auction results and realizing they cannot afford to sell. The losses are too catastrophic. So they're stuck. Can't sell retail because prices are too high and financing rates kill demand. Can't sell wholesale because auction prices are in free fall. And every day they wait, they're paying more floor plan interest on bikes that are losing value. And this is why we're seeing mass closures. I'm not talking about dealerships downsizing or consolidating. I'm talking about permanent shutdowns, doors locked, inventory liquidated, employees laid off. Over 400 motorcycle dealerships closed permanently in 2025. And 2026 is going to be worse. I drove past an Indian dealership in my area 2 weeks ago. The lot was nearly empty, maybe 5 bikes total, no new inventory, a couple of used bikes that looked like they'd been sitting there for months. The service bays were dark, no cars in the employee parking lot. I know exactly what's happening there. They stopped accepting shipments from Indian because they can't sell what they already have. They stopped taking trade-ins because they have no cash and no floor space. They've laid off most of their sales staff and service techs. They're trying to limp through the season, selling whatever they can, but it's over. That dealership will be permanently closed by spring. And it's not just Indian dealers. Harley dealerships are consolidating like crazy. Small towns that used to have 2 or 3 Harley dealers now have 1 or 0. Yamaha and Kawasaki dealers are dropping motorcycle sales entirely and focusing on ATVs and side-by-sides because those still move. Triumph and Ducati dealers are surviving only because they cater to a wealthier customer base that isn't as affected by high interest rates. The entire dealer network is collapsing. And the manufacturers are feeling it too because when dealers close, there's nobody left to sell their bikes.